Welcome back to Norwyn. This is the world of Norwyn. Season 1, Episode 3. Welcome back. If we've not yet met, my name is Weston Gold, and I'm a fantasy writer. Welcome back to the Norwyn Forest. In this show, we're building a fantasy world in real time. And I'm not just inviting you along for the ride. I'm not just inviting you to watch me build a fantasy world in real time. I'm actually inviting you to help me. And when I say that, I don't mean help me build the fantasy world. What I really mean is we're going to be discovering this world together, you and I. And that's exactly why I love making these videos. I'm having so much fun, I have to tell you. Because, to be honest with you, I'm not an experienced fantasy writer. I've been writing all my life. Short stories, lectures, all kinds of little things. And I finally decided one day, you know what? I should just publish a book. I should start writing real books and real stories and then publishing them. And I started out with children's stories. Maybe you've read some of mine. My first book is called The Lantern Keepers. It's a world called Lantern Valley, and it's for kids. And I'm still working on that series, actually. That series will have 10 books, and 4 of them are out right now, actually, and available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback. And the latest book is called The Black Flame, and the story has already taken a pretty dark turn with that book. If you haven't checked that out, I encourage you to order that one. Check it out and leave me a comment or a review. Let me know what you think. But that whole series led me to this world that I call Norwyn. And the thing was, I kind of realized that, first of all, I needed a world that kids could grow into, because kids that read Lantern Valley, even if they read all 10 books, by the time they read them all, they might be ready for something, a little more advanced than just children's stories, right? But then what really compelled me was this thought that I could actually design my own fantasy world that could be for people of all ages, kids, adults. I mean, this one's specifically not made for kids, but, I wanted to go more Lord of the Rings style. I mean, Lantern Valley is a little more Narnia-ish, if you will. And I felt like, you know what? I'm ready. I'm ready to be able to build something that has no rules. That's what I love about fantasy. There's no rules. I can make up my own rules. I can pull in elements of history, Middle Ages, medieval stuff. I can bring in Gothic stuff. I just can literally do whatever I want. That's what I love about writing fantasy. I don't have to research, what happened in the 9th century in England, or, what happened in France in the 4th century, or, whatever. So I'm really having a lot of fun, and I really love this idea that I'm involving you. In fact, I've already made changes to this world based on feedback from people like you. I've already mentioned in one of my videos that I've already changed the title of my first book. Well, actually, it'll end up being the second book. And it's called Lady Catherine, The Legend of the Raven Queen. And if you've been watching any of my videos, you know that I've kind of become obsessed with ravens. I've been finding their feathers, I've been studying them, and it turns out they're extremely intelligent. You know, they have the intelligence of like a 7-year-old kid. Can you believe that? They recognize human faces. They know who's good, who's bad, who's dangerous. They can make their own tools and use them. I'm just completely fascinated by ravens. And of course, they're perfect for fantasy because they've always had this sort of symbolism, this symbolic thing where they can be an omen for death. They can symbolize all kinds of things. And in Norwyn, my ravens are observers, they're watchers. But they're also, they portend something. And if you've been watching any of my videos, you know that the Raven Queen and the ravens gets pretty interesting. The legend says, basically, that, and you've heard this, when the ravens gather, she is already near. And that's kind of the premise of my book called Lady Catherine, The Legend of the Raven Queen. But, you know, as I've been writing this, I've been kind of realizing that I'm kind of creating my own type of fantasy. And I'm not so arrogant as to say I'm inventing my own subgenre of fantasy, okay? But I have to say that what's really fun about creating your own fantasy world is that, again, there's no rules, right? And you can make it however you want. And the thing I love about that is, of all the fantasy worlds that I've read in my lifetime and studied and experienced, it feels a little bit like something's missing. Now, I'm not going to knock Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to knock Game of Thrones or Westeros or Narnia or any of those unbelievable worlds that have been created. My hat's off to all those authors and writers. But as I have thought about it, I realized I've been looking for something that I haven't quite found. I've been looking for the perfect world. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, hey, Weston, I got news for you. There's no such thing as a perfect world, right? I know. And there's probably no such thing as a perfect fantasy world either. But what I kind of mean by that is there's certain things that I kind of feel like are missing. And there's certain things that I would want in my ideal fantasy world that I just haven't found. I just haven't experienced yet. And that's the beautiful thing about creating your own. It's like, I guess it's like anything else. If you don't like what's out there, which I'm not saying I don't like what's out there, but you know, if you don't like what's out there, then make your own, right? And boy, it's more challenging than I ever realized it would be, but it's also a lot of fun, and it's really, what's really making it fun is having you along with me and helping me. And I'm really just, I'm involving my fans and my audience not because I'm lazy. Somebody accused me of being lazy. I couldn't believe it. has nothing to do with that. I'm just looking for feedback, honest critique. If I come up with an idea and you're like, that's a dumb idea, don't do that. You know what? I might just listen to you. I might just listen to you. And then again, I might not. But I love the feedback. And like I said, I've already changed the title of my second book of Norwyn, The Songs of Norwyn. It's called the series. The book is called Lady Catherine, The Legend of the Raven Queen. Now, originally the book was going to be called The Raven Queen, The Legend of Lady Catherine. And, I mean, now that I think about it, I'm like, why didn't I just do it the other way around from the start? I mean, it just makes more sense to have it the other way around. Lady Catherine should be the title, and the subtitle should be The Legend of the Raven Queen. And, there's a lot of great people out there that have read a lot of fantasy and have been exposed to a lot more than I have. And, they've let me know that there's already a Raven Queen out there, which I didn't know, and I'm really glad someone told me. And the good thing is mine's different, very different from those, thankfully. But, the feedback has just been super helpful. And I'm just really thankful that people are willing to watch my videos and give me feedback. And, eventually I'll be asking for beta readers. So if you're interested in being a beta reader, let me know. Email. You can find my email at the bottom of this channel, bottom of this video probably. And by the way, make sure you subscribe and make sure you join my free email newsletter. I got Patreon, I got all that stuff. And, you can become a member of the channel as well. All those things really help me be able to keep making these videos and keep writing. Because, my goal, obviously, like I suppose any writer's goal, is to be able to write full time, right? And I'm not any different. I want to be able to write full time and, not have to do all these odd jobs that I do right now. So, anyways, here I am. My name is Weston Gold. I'm building this fantasy world called Norwyn. Now, I hope I'm not boring you, but what I really wanted to talk about today is something that I think has been missing from fantasy. I think modern fantasy has forgot something really important. Not dragons, not castles, not knights or kings. Something much older. And once you see it, you can't unsee it anymore. It's like once you realize that one thing that's sort of missing, it's like it honestly just doesn't satisfy anymore until you find it. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about something ancient. I've been calling it Cathedral fantasy. Now, it's just the working term I'm using. Like I said, I'm not arrogant enough to think that I've invented something new. Certainly not a new type of fantasy, but I love that phrase because I feel like it really does describe what's been missing in a lot of fantasy these days. And the reason I call it Cathedral fantasy is because the one thing that's missing, you guessed it, cathedrals. Now, when I say cathedrals, there's a reason that I say that. And it's not so much about the actual cathedral itself or the architecture or the idea that a fantasy world should have a cathedral. It's more of the feeling. And that's what I think has been missing in most of the fantasy that I've been exposed to. You see, when you walk into a fantasy, When you walk into a cathedral, no one has to tell you how to act. There's this feeling that you get, the stained glass, the giant overarching ceilings, the stone, the way the room sounds and the way the room feels. No one has to tell you, whisper, don't talk too loud. Use your inside voice. No one has to tell you that. No one has to tell you that, you're supposed to be in awe. No one has to tell you how you should act in a cathedral, an ancient cathedral. And why is that? Well, it's because of the atmosphere. It's because of the feeling that you get when you're in there. I mean, like even right now, I'm in this forest, and the environment itself causes me to feel a certain way. And it's that feeling, it's that haunting feeling like there's a whole lot more going on here. That's what I feel like is missing. And I honestly, I think that's what Lewis and Tolkien got right, actually. But my fantasy world called Norwyn is definitely a gothic fantasy world. And there's just something about when you step into a world that you notice right away how it feels. And you notice that it's not like you're walking into a world that's been invented. See, that's the key. You're walking into a world that has already existed for thousands of years. There's history there. There's something ancient. There's obviously a lot that's happened, a lot that's been going on way before you discovered it. And you see, that's what I love about this series, is that you and I, we're not inventing a fantasy world. We're not building a world together, right? Because obviously there's that term, world building. No, you know what we're doing together? We're discovering something ancient together. That's the secret. That's the secret. Almost as though Norwyn has already existed for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And you and I, we are just now discovering it. Kind of like walking through that wardrobe and coming out into the snow of Narnia. It's that sort of idea that you and I are discovering this world together. And there's something about cathedrals that remind us that the best fantasy worlds are the worlds that I want to live in, that you want to live in, that you can visualize and see yourself in, and you can feel it, you can smell it, you can sense it, and there's meaning here, like there's so much more going on. And I feel like so much of modern fantasy, how do I explain it? It just explains too much, and it makes the world feel small when everything's explained and there's no mystery. And, Sanderson talks about this idea of the iceberg, which is one of my all-time favorite metaphors for so many things. I've used it so many different ways because it's just such a great metaphor. But Sanderson has said, that the 10% that's on the surface, 10 or 20% that's on the surface, that's what you see, that's what's revealed. But then there's this whole world, this whole history, this whole meaning underneath the surface that's not revealed. And actually, he uses the idea that portion of the iceberg that's underneath the water he calls it the hollow part, you know. In other words, you don't have to figure it all out. It doesn't have to be explained. It doesn't have to be fully understood, even by the author, right away. You just need to reveal that 10 or 20% to your reader and to your fans, and, you know, let time and let imagination figure out the rest. You know, it'll all happen with good time. But then again, some of it may always be unanswered. You know, maybe some things underneath the surface are never fully answered or explained, and that's okay. That's what makes the world feel bigger, and that's why I love this term called Cathedral Fantasy, because what I want to do is I want to make stepping into Norwyn feel like you're stepping in to an ancient cathedral, and there's meaning and there's depth and there's, quite frankly, something spiritual there that is sort of like understood, but then again, not fully understood. Like, what's happening here? You know, modern fantasy, I feel like all too often it answers the question, you know, it just answers too many questions. And the kind of fantasy world I want to live in, Norwyn, is the kind of fantasy world that asks the question, what happened here? And what's happening now? What's going on? And how does the past shape the present? And how does it shape the future? And that's what I love about the Raven Queen. She's mysterious, and you know, I'm going to keep asking people to comment on this and give me feedback, because you know, what I want to know from you is the Raven Queen a villain, or is she a hero, or is she morally gray, or is she, I don't know, she not certain of herself, or what's going on with the Raven Queen? What's going on with Lady Catherine? How did she become the Raven Queen anyways, you know? And does she command the ravens? Or do the ravens command her? Speaking of ravens, did you hear that? That's kind of weird. I think the ravens are coming. And like I said, the legend says, when the ravens gather, she's already near. So, it's time for me to go. Thanks for watching. Make sure you comment, give me some feedback, give me some thoughts, and keep watching. And together, we're going to discover this ancient world called Norwyn. Thanks for being here. I'm Weston Gold, and I'm a fantasy writer.